Okay, great. So we're recording now. So as I mentioned, we'll plan to make the recording public. If anything gets said, like, oh, I shouldn't have said that person's name or something like that, let me know and we'll stop the recording right then so we can make it easier to edit and we'll start again. And if we don't stop the recording anywhere along the way, we'll just plan to make it public. Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Awesome, awesome. And also, as I mentioned, at any time, if you want to say anything that shouldn't be recorded, just ask me to pause it and we can do that.
Got it.
Awesome.
We should be fine.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so grateful that we're having this connection. I so appreciate that you know, felt the urge to answer the call, you know, that you felt that I get, especially, you know, for somebody like you that's so you know, connected energetically, spiritually, you know, that's operating from that space. I so honor you know, when this feels right, you know, that when that comes up, it's like, you know, I'm finding the right people. That's kind of like what's happening right now is I'm just scattering all of these messages everywhere and finding the people that are the right people, you know. So I just want to honor and appreciate you that you are one of those people, that you have shown up and that we're now co-creating the world together, right? So awesome. Yes, yes. So as we talked about, you know, I'm in the midst of a lot of development, exciting development. So I'm going to show you, you know, little pieces of what's already there, but we'll talk about what's coming and how different and transformational that's going to be. You know, today we'll spend our time primarily answering any questions, filling any gaps about, you know, what is this? How does this work? Why about this? Anything that you have, any questions in your mind, to get those out of there. And then also, as we said, just starting the mind map to start having you know, preparing between now and our next session to go even deeper with where we're going to go with the thought branches and all of that. So I guess before we dive into everything, you know, one, I'll just ask if there's anything you want to share, you know, and then also want to kind of get a sense of what you've gotten from what you've read and looked at. You know, I'm always interested in hearing other people's perspective as they're absorbing all the content. So I definitely want to kind of get a sense of what you're getting from what you're absorbing from Uniting for Action. And then we'll dive right into all the, you know, whatever questions you have and you know, answer any questions. So with that, anything that you want to start with? Yeah, just I'll let you take it from here now that you get an idea of where we're going with all this.
Yeah, so I can definitely say that I answered your call per se, like text and stuff. Like now I really felt much more like ready. In the past I was like, oh, so busy, I have so much going on. And then just literally the day before you contacted me, I was doing meditation. I'm like, okay, what's missing? And like instantly it was like community. I was like, okay, well, I'm in Miami. There's so much community. Yeah, I haven't really been feeling that connection with any one group. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's not an in-person community I'm looking for. And so that's what I'm constantly just after you know, put out setting up community either through retreats or virtual or something. And it's really just being like, hey, I'm here, right? We don't have to stay in community. And that's okay. Just reminding people there are just really nice and kind ones out there. And so, you know, just reviewing the material that you say, it's kind of like you're saying, building, I don't want to say like a new world, but definitely a world where things make more sense to spiritual workers such as ourselves, where we talk about these dynamics, we talk about the spirituality, we talk about things that's just like, well, of course that makes sense, because like you said, we're attracting the same vibration and we're able to help one another out. Like when I was going over the material and looking over the videos, I already knew like 2 of the 3 people right? Like Burge, I'm also an essence of being graduate. I've been through all her courses, and then when I thought like, oh, she's coming back to Fort Lauderdale, I'm like, great. So I look forward to helping out with them. Oh gosh, there's this I forget, Angie. I actually met her at the event that you put together a few years ago. And so, and I've just seen her again recently. So it's just like, okay, I know these people. I've been in their circles in and out over time. And just, yeah, reading over the content. Yep, like you said, it's quite a lot. So I had to sit like 15, 20 minutes, read it, absorb it, walk away. I'm like, that's a lot. You know, it was like a lot of different aspects. But again, I'm just grateful to say, even if I can't read it all or digest it all in one sitting, it's there and I can go back to it. And as you build, right, not just you, but the community builds this new version of like the meta, right, the spiritual meta. It's just, we're going to infiltrate, and I feel that in such a good way, and we're definitely what the world needs to shift. And we're gonna, and you're just so connected with many different people, right? Not just like a therapist or a personal development coach. Like, it's more like people even in the background that we're never gonna really see, but they're there and they're just like busy building. And it's just like so great, because we need all of that in order to change the world and improve the world that we're in, and be the, and that's what I was just feeling. I was just like, I don't know what to do. There's so much to do. Like you mentioned, there's like, oh, there's this organization that pulls plastic, and then there's this one that does the same thing but a different name. And it's just like, really, why can't we just like we're all here to help together? Why is it be like, donate to this one, that one, and this one, that one? It's like, how can we all come together? So yeah, like you said, that I don't know, like one of your videos or content, but I was like, yep, that totally in agreement. One place, let's just go.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate you, seeing that, getting that, feeling that. It is, and I think you're tuned into this as well as I am. It is just like the natural evolution of our species, right? Like, we can objectively look at it and say, this is not the most efficient and most effective use of our resources and our time and our energies, and our needs are so dire at this point. Our planet is in such peril on a daily basis in so many different ways that we cannot afford to keep acting as inefficiently and ineffectively, as wastefully. We can't just keep wasting this earth, and wasting all the species and all the ecosystem. It's just like, it's not a sustainable way to be, and we get that. And that's the thing, like you said, like so many people get that like on an intelligence level, but there's a real disconnect. Okay, and so what do we do about it? And there really hasn't been like a global, like, here's how we're all dealing with all of this together type of thing. And so it is essentially inevitable that we'll get there. But in all the years I've been waiting for somebody else to figure it out, it hasn't gotten figured out. So I've just kept plugging along. I'm like, I know I can get there eventually. If nobody else is going to get there, I'll just keep going. And that's what I've been doing. And fortunately, now I've gotten far enough along, as you can see, with enough, different aspects developed enough to be able to really lay out a pretty complete roadmap, and the important piece, and this is why, because and you'll have to remind me, which energetic planet events or higher vibe life events you went to, if there were anywhere that we got into like visioning and talking about, how to work together, or whether they were more the social oriented events that I created, networking events. But the thing that we've all recognized for a long time is that we have to come together. We have to work together. The whole, age of Aquarius has been creating this whole extra awareness, right? That there's all these things out there that people are, having this awareness of ways to evolve. And yet, where has the mechanism been, right? And that's the thing, is I've been working on some kind of mechanism that can drive it all for so many years. And it was only about a year ago that I figured out that we can just keep breaking things down to the nano actions. No matter what we're doing, we can keep breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down. And there's a finite, level to which we can break things down. And as we are breaking things down in this systematic way, so that we're all looking at things in the same systematic way and measuring things in the same kind of way, now we can have comparative data, that allows us all to be simultaneously learning together, right? As we're all entering it into this collective global brain and have this, mission control interface that gives us the opportunity to, really have access in real time to everything that everyone knows about everything. That's going to be such a shift for humanity. And then, all these different aspects that we're talking about, the working together and all of that, just almost automatically falls into place, just because once we have a framework to allow us to be operating within the most effective and efficient ways possible, then we're just going to, trend towards whatever that looks like, right? And we so many of us know on so many different levels that it looks like working together, like you're saying. It looks like not all doing our own thing, just counting on it all coming together somehow and creating a better result, but actually being much more intentional about our evolution and driving our evolution through our choices. So again, I really honor and appreciate you getting all that, us being in that space. It's really awesome. So with that, let me ask, are there questions that have been coming up for you, or things that you don't understand about different aspects that you've read or seen that you want me to clarify to give you more of a, foundation for where we're going to build on with all of this?
I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of it's quite over my head. It's just a very different language for me, which with a lot of the things that you're building, like I get the big picture. It's just like you said, the breakdown. I'm just like, wow, that's a lot of elements. I'm done. Like my brain's like shutting off already. It's almost like numbers for me. It's like when I see that. So in regards to the specific question, I already asked you about the manifestation process that I saw in Burge's video. I was like, that was cool. I was like, yes. Because I feel like where I'm at right now, it was funny, like yesterday, I do oracle readings. So I did one for myself, and the one card that popped out was like, okay, you're going through a breakthrough. I'm like, great. And so what I feel like it's just, I feel like a darkness, not in a negative way, like a darkness, like kind of like a veil is in front of me, and it hasn't like clearly shown me like what that next direction is. So I'm just like, okay, well, what am I doing now? So that's kind of where I'm at, which is again why I was excited about this connection, because I was like, okay, maybe it's through this work as a community that I will be reignited again, and maybe that veil will shift, because doing a lot of this work on our own is challenging, or bits and pieces. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, the mind mapping, what I'm looking forward to that as well is kind of like with Burge. I've done something similar, and I think what has happened is like I've done it, and then it's like, okay, and then we're done, right? It's like, here's your mind map, that's it, right? So what I'm hoping, I guess, then I guess that does lead me to a question. Once we create, let's say, the mind map or the manifestation process, what then, right? Like once we build like our, kind of what I saw, it was like our little stores or our little like worlds, and then what? Like, how do we as people stay connected, and even work to like empower one another, with what we're doing?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And thank you for sharing everything that you shared. It's really great. Um, and I'm going to tie it back to some of what I was seeing on your website to be really specific. And you'll tell me which parts, are like active for you currently and all of that. And I just want to say, since I just read it earlier today, I'm really sorry for, your loss with your sister and your mom. I really honor and appreciate how you've taken, those tragedies and turned them into supporting others and creating a lot of good in the world. So, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
who you are
Yeah.
for that and for your whole, journey that I read about on your website. It was really, really great. I really appreciate that. And so, the thing about the mind maps, and this is where what we're doing is with the thought branches, and we're going to talk about the thought branches today because that's essentially where we're going with this now. The mind map is like the current version of thought branches, and we're taking it like to the next level. Because with the mind map primarily, and I'm sure there are mind map tools that do this already, but most mind maps that you see are two-dimensional, right? You're seeing it on the screen, you're seeing the branches, you essentially can only branch, however many times from one thing and then all of that. But, there can be, and with most mind maps, you only have one entry point into a node, right? Like this one connects to this one. But what about this one? What about this one over here that also connects to this one, right? Like there's a multi-dimensional aspect to it that's hard to visualize, in our visual world. But you're getting, as I'm sure a lot of people get it on a lot of levels, that really every thought has a lot of different entry points into that thought. Like you could come up with that thought. Like let's just take one of the services that you offer as an example. So give me an example of one specific service that you offer.
Yeah. So I would say like an energy tune-up.
Okay, great. And so like what different types of things might somebody be experiencing that might have them feel that maybe they could use an energy tune-up? What are the different types of situations they might be experiencing?
Yeah, so some people could be feeling spiritually disconnected, emotionally disconnected. As they say, like they feel blocked. So I call it's like an oil change for the body, is just flushing out. They feel heavy with trauma. Just again, just a lot of emotion that, or specific chakras that they themselves feel is blocked. They may not use the word chakras, but they say like, I don't feel like myself. I feel heavy, or I have a lot of physical pain. I feel sad a lot of times. And so that's usually just a lot of energy that's weighing on them.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. So now the one node is the energy tune-up, right? And they can reach that node through physical blockages, emotional blockages, feeling heavy, trauma, right? Like there's all these entry points into that, right? And then similarly, from the energetic tune-up, there's a lot of different exit points, right? Like you can feel happier, you can feel lighter, you can feel physically better. Like there's all these different outcomes that can go, or different paths. Once you've done that, now you might be ready for this or for this or for this, right? And not only do you personally have, so many different, things that you want to describe, and this is again like on your I forget if it was the tune-up page or the spiritual page, you had listed a whole bunch of different like sound healing and and
Yeah.
meditation and all these, different aspects, right? So again, you've already been practicing, like, what can I say about this? Let me write a paragraph about this. Let me share a paragraph about that, right? And yet for every one of those things, you could talk for an hour, or you could talk for a day, depending upon how deep you're going to go with people about those things, right? But the thing is right now, in our current world, nobody has access to your hour-long conversation or your day-long conversation, right? Like there's no storage mechanism for that information. There's no delivery mechanism for that information. Once you do it once with one person, say somebody's ready to pay you $3,000 for a day-long deep dive into, what can they do, and let's say they're open to having you record it all, right? And you record that entire, 8 hours of content. Now you can sell that 8 hours of content for $200, for somebody showing up to receive it virtually, right? So and you can serve so many more people who are willing to watch the recording, than you can personally, with only so many days in the year, right, for you. So you can make an impact on much more people, right? And then, okay, go through this 8 hour. If you still want more, then, we'll do a personal session, type of thing. So what we're doing with the thought branches really is we're creating this whole like matrix of information and thoughts, from you, where you're going to start to share your thoughts primarily in video, can be audio, can be writing as well. It's just that, usually writing is a longer process. But we're essentially heading toward, I'm kind of showing the world that we're heading towards an evolutionary transition where essentially we're getting to the point where almost all, or for some of us all, of what comes out of our mouth, of what we're expressing into the world, is going to be recorded and is going to be processed by artificial intelligence in order to be able to take some thoughts I'm sharing with you and some thoughts I'm sharing with somebody else about the same topic, and some thoughts I'm sharing with somebody else about the same topic. And the AI is going to be able to take all of those together, all those disconnected thoughts, and create and organize them into, a web page, a video, product, whatever. So, what we're doing with Uniting for Action is we're kind of pioneering the way into this new world, where we're starting with this manual process, because we don't have the AI working yet, although I think it's going to be pretty quick with the way AI is going these days, that within, a matter of, a few months, if not a few weeks, that we'll actually have the processing of the video like I'm talking about. I've been doing it manually in the past to create the pages that I showed you, right? So the electric token page, Burge's page, Angie's page, each of those were an hour and a half long conversation where, I prompted them to talk about different parts, and then they talked about different things. And then after we were done, I spent, 2-3 hours going through the video, just cutting it all down, pulling out all the different pieces, prioritizing the different clips, just deciding, what is valuable out of all of this, right? And what can be grouped with other parts to, turn just a conversation into a web page. Like you saw the exact web pages and the functionality of those web pages, right? It's like, it would really, anybody would have to, again, spend an hour and a half watching the entire video of that entire conversation, trying to process it for themselves, trying to figure out, what parts are important, all of that. Like, people don't have time to do that with everything they're interested in, right? We, as the holders of the information, of the thoughts, we need to be the ones that are figuring out how to chop it up, how to deliver it, all of that. Again, thankfully, AI is showing up in a way that's going to really enable us, in those ways. And And that's where, to kind of give you an idea of, where we're going with it with the mind map, we'll start with the mind map today, just to have you show me all the big important pieces that are top of mind for you in your world, right? And then we'll branch a little bit, and then after our session, you'll go into more depth on your own, just like going deeper into those, right? As you're figuring out where you want to spend the attention of our next 60 to 90 minute session, digging into the thought branches, because what you're going to do is you're going to talk about the specific things that you want to share essentially on your website, but now it's going to be your profile on Uniting for Action, right? That has all of this content broken down. Of course, you can copy any of it over to your website, and eventually we'll have an integration with the websites, right? A back-end technological integration, so that anything that's showing up on Uniting for Action, or any of the tools that you're using, can, behind the scenes update your website automatically and all those sorts of things. So we'll head in that direction eventually, just to give you a sense. But in the meantime, as we're developing the technology and we're developing the process, again, essentially what we'll do is we will give, by the end of our next session, you will have all of this raw video of all of these thoughts that you want to share. And you're essentially in your head, between now and then, you're going to kind of like rough out, I want to talk about sound healing, and I want to talk about this part about sound healing, and I want to talk about this part, and I want to talk about what it does on the physical side. And when I get into on the physical side, I want to talk about, the brain and the heart and the nervous system and all these different things. And as you're kind of mapping all of that out on your mind map, what you're doing is you're literally creating the branches of your thought branches, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, and so again, what we're doing with this system is we're letting you capture all of those branches. We're letting you convey to others where your thoughts go, what thoughts you've covered in all of your thought branches. And we're getting to the point crazy soon. It's really kind of mind-blowing how quickly this is going to develop. But as you're going ahead and laying out, all of your thought branches about all of these topics, okay, when you say whatever you have to say about sound healing, as the next person in the realm of empowerment has their thought about sound healing, and the next one has their thought about sound healing, now this is where all of your branches are like converging around sound healing. And then you have some branches that go off this way, and they have some branches that go off this way, and they have as all of these branches are there, and all of these different thoughts are happening, and different people are chiming in, and all of that, we, with the system, get to collect data about all of that as well, right? So when somebody shows up at the Uniting for and within the realm of empowerment, and they say, oh, I heard about the sound healing thing, what should I know about sound healing? So now they arrive at the sound healing thought, and then there's all of this data. There's this many realm of empowerment supporters that have said something about sound healing. Of those people, this percentage went in this direction, this percentage went in this direction, this percentage went. So we're starting to get what I'm going to use this term, I don't know if you've heard it in this way, metadata. I love that you said meta before. Metadata. So metadata in the definition that I use around it is data about data. Okay. Yes. So you're familiar with that, the use of that?
Not at all.
Okay. Okay. But you get, I'll explain it really simply. Again, your what you have to say about sound healing is in any ways that you're, well, even again, when you talk about sound healing and then you branch off into physical, right?
Right.
And then that next thought that starts to move into physical gets tagged with physical, okay? And then, and there's another branch that goes into emotional, right? And another branch that goes into whatever. But then your let's say raw data, the data that you've created is that, hey, from sound healing, I'm now talking about physical effects of sound healing. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's the data. The data is that you've mentioned that. Now, when somebody else mentions it and somebody else mentions it, now the raw data is that they mentioned it and they mentioned it, but the number of people that mentioned it is the data about the data. You get what I'm saying? That's the metadata. The metadata is this percentage of people went in this direction, this percentage of people went in this direction, this percentage of people went in this direction. So it's data about the data that we're looking at. Do you get what I'm saying? So that's one of the real revolutions here, because the metadata is what we like to use for our decision-making process, essentially. Like when you read something, it's not enough that you've read it. Like you want to know, what is the source of this information? And is this what MDs say, or is this what DOs say, or is this what practitioners of Chinese medicine say? Or you get what I'm saying? Like you want to qualify the data that you're getting with some data about that data. You get what I'm saying? That's what helps you make decisions. So again, the thought maps allow us to take everything that's in. All right, I said thought maps again. I have to get used to thought branches. The thought branches that you're laying down and you're sharing with the world is everything coming out of your head as raw thoughts, essentially, right? And then there's metadata about that, because, like, Paty had 50 thoughts about the physical and she had 3 thoughts about the, emotional. I want to dive into the physical just because I know there's more content there, so again, so that's just another example, of metadata. So the whole thing with the thought branches are, we're going to start to, give you the ability to start creating your thought branches in a way that can be consumed by others, in a way that your thought branches can be intermingled, so to speak, with everyone else's thought branches to create this collective global brain, right? So that when somebody shows up at sound healing, then they have your information, they have other people's information, all that. And then the other part, like we've talked about, is that, every place that you want to, as you're sharing thoughts, part of the thoughts that you can be sharing are, and that's why I offer this service, or that's why I recommend this book, or that's why I send people to this person, right? And so every time you do that, and every time anybody drops into the realm of empowerment, and they're just kind of, going from branch to branch to branch, following thought to thought to thought, then they see, oh, and Paty can actually, provide something to me, or she told me I should read this book, or I should watch this movie. So, one, they can, hire you for your services or products for whatever you're sharing that you're offering, support around that particular thought. But then the next level, as you've read about, is, but also when you're recommending that book or that movie or whatever, that you'll earn a commission on that too. So it creates this whole multi-dimensional way that we're monetizing our thoughts directly, right? That we're laying all of our thoughts down, but as much as we want to, there's actually monetization at the end of whatever thoughts, we want. And the more that we are laying thoughts down and people are consuming them, and we're becoming an influencer around the topics that we are, influencing others around, then the more and more the monetization becomes lucrative, essentially, right? Because you're building up this, base of people that want to know what you think about things. They really like the way that you think about things. They really like how you've, done all of this. So then, extends into these other areas. They trust you, right? They trust your recommendation, even when it doesn't have to do with your healing or whatever. Just like, this person that fixed my computer is the best, and I recommend them to everybody. And your influencers are going to find, whenever they're looking to fix their computer, they're going to query, who has recommended anybody, and they're going to go, oh, Paty recommended somebody. I totally trust anything Paty says, so I'm going to, hire that person. So you get what I'm saying? That's how it starts to get into this new realm for us, where again, very quickly within the next, couple of years, it's going to be very mainstream for us to be just sharing all of our thoughts, dropping down all of these different, recommendations or, whatever. And just, people making purchases out in the world from at the ends of all of these thoughts that are just providing this passive income for us all the time through all of these commissions that we're earning from all these different things. So essentially, again, to bring it back to where we're at right now and where you're at with, what you're offering, the main things we'll focus on will be in the short term, the products and services that you're offering, right? And we'll also talk a bit about, what you have to offer virtually, because that's, an important part. Obviously, you have the local stuff, but we also want to really know what you already have to share with the wider world, and what you may, have been thinking about, what you may want to create to be able to offer to non-local people, that sort of thing. So that'll, be an important part of what we'll talk about. But that is kind of like the overview of, like, it starts with the mind map, but it goes into these thought branches. And I'm actually, like we talked about, building the technology right now that next time we sit down, that will actually be creating the thought branches and creating this whole navigation of all of your thoughts, so that you'll be able to start creating the video, chopping it up, putting it into these thought branches, and then, creating posts on social media. Hey, I wanted everybody to know, I just, shared this thing about this. And then, again, whenever you drop people into that one thought, that's in the midst of all of your thought branches, so they can follow your branches into anything from there, right?
Pretty amazing. Okay, so yeah, I mean, that's pretty intense, pretty mind-blowing for sure. And you're like, I know, because you're like building it. And I'm just like, oh, bits and pieces. So with the mind map, I know, like you said, like we're just starting it. So once we start, because I know, like for me, I'm also continuing to build, like add services or add things, and I'm building stuff. So is this, like like a work in progress per se? Like we start the foundation now, and then, like you said, like just keep adding to it, so that, and it's just going to be also easily accessible. So in between sessions or in between time working on this, I can go in and be like, oh, okay, let me expand on it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is very much the thought branch concept is very much like a work in progress forever. Like it's really a mechanism to get all the things that are in our head out into the world in a documented way, so that then other people can, traverse our mind, our thoughts, all of that in ways that just aren't available now. So we're all going to constantly be adding, thought branches every day. That's really going to be the process over time. And again, an important revolution that I'll just bring up now, you might have read about it, but it's an important point, is that as you, create all of your thought branches, and I create all of my thought branches, then the AI has the ability to compare those branches, right? And compare where you branched and where I branched and where we have differing branches and all of that. So actually our world very soon is going to turn into a world of comparison of thought branches for decision making. For who we're working with, for who we're purchasing from, like all the things that we make decisions about now are going to, a lot of our decision making is going to come down to our value system. Is basically what's going to happen, is that we're going to want to make sure that we're only giving our money to companies that are protecting the rainforest and not cutting it down, and that are cleaning up our world and not polluting our world, and all these different things that are really important to us, that right now, you know, because of the lack of transparency, you know, every day we're giving money to companies that are doing things to us that we abhor, you know, but we don't know that they're doing that. You know, there's no transparency in the whole supply chain and all that sort of thing. So I don't know if you got far enough in the summary. This is like volume 9 or 10. It's near the end where it gets into the yeah, no.
I didn't go that far.
Yeah, you'll get into how it comes together in a economic way, you know, in that we're making collective purchasing decisions and taking collective consumer actions that allow us to start directing the whole corporate mechanism in the world, in the direction of the values that we, you know, that we cherish, you know, like health and wellness, right? So
Okay,
that's
no,
where
I did capture that. And kind of like you said, just like create, and that's why I said like it's I don't want to keep saying like we're creating, but in essence, we're bringing together a value-based world that we feel more aligned with.
Yes, exactly. A lot of what's happening is we're, you know, creating the mechanisms to be able to have the world show up in the ways that we want it to, right? And in a lot of ways, in the ways that we need it to, in order to maintain our health and well-being and all of that. I'm starting to use the terms, I think you'll appreciate it with your mental health background and all of that, that I'm really starting to characterize it as a lot of what we're doing is self-harm. You know, like when the self is bigger than the individual, when the self is, you know, all of, well, the whole species, you know, and also all of life, that, you know, the way that we're, you know, as a byproduct of our comfort, let's say, you know, conveniences, that we're pouring, you know, billions of tons of, you know, poisons into the, you know, into the atmosphere and the oceans and rivers and everything, that our lack of discernment about what we're doing, you know, is really, it's just self-harm is what it is. You know, we're harming ourselves without creating the awareness for ourselves of what we're doing to ourselves and others, right? And so when we are willing to be responsible for like, no, I don't want to keep, you know, hurting myself and hurting others, then, you know, we have to start to make sure our purchasing, the things that we're doing, the actions that we're taking are in alignment with our values, right?
Right.
So again, our world is just not set up to allow us to bring our actions into alignment with our values, is what it comes down to. That there's a disconnect based on discernment. We're just not able to know the difference between two different companies and which one is better for, you know, the environment and people and all of that sort of thing, right? So that's where this goes, you know, eventually. And just to bring it back to also create some clarification around the mind map and where things go from there. So we're going to, with our next session, you know, record all of these thought branches for yourself. And then the system gives you all of the self-service tools for you to manually break it down and create these pages and all of that sort of thing. What's that?
So that's amazing. That's really where I'm like stuck at. I'm like, there's just so much to do to break it down. I'm like, I'm just gonna like just treat a client right now. But yeah, working on my business that's been my biggest challenge for sure.
Yeah, I totally get that. So we're providing, you know, all the self-service tools and collective learning, you know, that you and others can share with each other about how you're using all the tools and all of that. And we're also offering, and obviously we'll develop this over time, but Uniting for Action is offering full service tools where, like, basically, again, the pages that you saw is where those people, Burge, Electric Token, Angie, they all, paid Uniting for Action to process the video and turn it into the pages and that sort of thing. So Uniting for Action will always offer the full service, will always offer the self-service. And again, as the AI, starts to be integrated, then, the costs will come down significantly because, AI will be doing a lot of the work. You won't, even when you're, accessing the full service tools, it won't necessarily be people doing all the work. It'll be people overseeing AI and working with AI, and maybe something that took somebody 8 hours will now take them an hour or what have you. So this is kind of the way that things will be evolving. And then again, I'm already foreseeing, and it's just a matter of time, and we'll just see how long it takes. But it's really just a matter of time before the AI is doing almost all of what we're talking about, without very much human intervention necessary. So it'll be basically that you're just talking, you've got your automatic recording mechanism going on. It's picking up all of what you're saying. It's tagging your different thoughts by what you're saying. It's adding, those thoughts to the other thoughts that you've shared in the past with the same tags. It's processing all of the collective information that you've shared with that tag, let's say again, sound healing. And then it's going ahead and automatically creating a web page that makes sense to people, that shares what you have to say, can create images, can create diagrams, can create, videos. It's really kind of crazy what AI is already able to create with all of that, right? And here's the other part too, just to blow your mind again, because most people aren't talking about all of these things. But we're in a place where we're doing our best to share all that information in a way that we think will make sense for people. I mean, like your web pages, what I see on your web page is the same as what the next person sees, is the same as what the next person sees. Your web page is your web page, right?
Yeah.
But we're getting to the point where our AI assistants will know how we like to see information. Like, what's the longest video we're willing to watch? Like, what's the longest web page we're willing to read? And our AI assistant is going to reach into Paty's thought branches and process all the thought branches to give Jared the information the way that Jared wants to see it, not the way that Paty thinks Jared wants to see it,
Wow.
but the way Jared actually wants to know about what Paty is sharing.
That's just amazing, yet like kind of spooky at the same time. But
Exactly. It is. I totally get that. I'm spooked out every day, by what I'm doing basically. But at the same time, this technology is there and people are working with it. And like a lot of people have told me as I've been talking about some of this AI stuff, it's like, I'm glad, Jared, that you're using it for good stuff,
Yeah, exactly. Because that's, I have this conversation a lot with my husband of just the things people are coming up with. And it's not always a good thing. And so, the fact that you're using AI and teaching people how we can use this for good, and then just keep bringing more of us together because we are more powerful in numbers. And if we're all basically using these resources, I mean, like, okay, now we understand how to use these resources, and then keep spreading the light. I feel like it's just gonna overpower the darkness, So unicorn mindset.
No, I totally appreciate what you're saying. And that's the thing. It's great. It's great that you're saying that. And that's why it's so important that you and the other people who are, beginning the realm of empowerment get to, essentially create that energetic grounding for us, that vibrational North Star of what Uniting for Action is, bringing into the world. So, I really honor you and appreciate you for that, because it is a really, we are going into a lot of uncharted territory for humanity, and it's going to bring up a lot of stuff for humanity. And that's why again, I'm starting with saying, the front door to Uniting for Action is the realm of empowerment, because we're gonna kick up so much shadow stuff for humanity that we want to make sure we have the tools there to support humanity to deal with all that humanity is going to be dealing with one way or the other, to deal with all what we are already dealing with, but not in very effective ways, right?
Yeah.
All of I all the time I'm thinking about all this, mental health crisis amongst the youth,
Yeah.
in our society. And I can't help but think that, yeah, they're dealing with so much stuff because they are like feeling what we should all be feeling about the world. It's just that we're all, um, so I don't want to say, I don't want to even use that word. We're all so numbed. We've been through so many years and so many decades that, even when I tell people, do you know that I don't know if you know this, it's crazy. You do know that between what you inhale and what you ingest, you're taking in approximately a credit card's worth of plastic into your body every single week. Every single week. I mean, and again, it's like somehow for a lot of people, that's like, oh, that's crazy. And then, on to the next. It's
Yeah.
like, we've lost the outrage that that's happening in our world, right? That's not an acceptable situation. That it used to be totally, when we were growing up, we could never imagine that we would have crossed that Rubicon in our lifetime, right? And certainly we would have somehow done something to turn the corner before that happened. But no, now we're here, and it's just becoming normalized, right? So again, to me, it's like the kids are having the proper freak out, that a lot of the adults should be having, but we're not, because we're just numbed out about it, and it's like we're not getting that's just an accurate reflection of the world we're creating for those kids. It's like, let's not, of course we want to have counselors and we want to have all these things to help the kids, but also let's start creating the world in a way that doesn't have all the kids freaking out as much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so awesome. So where do we go from here?
Yeah, so let's dive in and start creating your mind map to be able to start you off on that course. I know I mentioned we'd take between 30 and 60 minutes. We're almost at 60 minutes already. Do you have a little bit more time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I blocked us off for 90 minutes. So
okay, perfect. So let me pull it up and start sharing my screen. Okay, so let's dive right into the mind maps. So this, I think, we'll see once we start using this, whether you want to actually sorry, I'm just seeing why they didn't automatically log me in. I don't want to change my password. I just pause here. Oh, I'm already logged in. Okay. That's fine. Okay, so this is a tool that I use to create mind maps, and it's just $3 a month. There's other tools out there that actually will evolve too, but I just want to kind of share it with you in case other people have asked me, how can I use this? I think we'll have to see afterwards. I may be able to give you editing accesses. You'll at least have viewable access to this afterwards. So let's just, how do we want to title this?
we could do Mariposas Holistic.
Let me make it a little bigger. Okay, great. Okay. And so now again, we just want to focus on like the main categories, the main areas, start branching into some certain areas, and then let you, start tuning in to where, and you don't have to decide today, you can decide after today, but essentially you want to be heading towards, between now and our next session, heading towards really mapping out, what you want to spend the next session's time on for the most part, to be able to get all of that recorded, right? But even once I show you how to do it, you'll be able to do it on your own as much as you want anyways, right? I'm just kind of giving you the starting point of, we're going to create a bunch of content that's going to contain a bunch of different thought branches for you. You're going to have the tools to be able to take edited. Have you done any video editing yourself to this point? Is that something?
Yeah, I use iMovie.
Yeah. And do you have your own YouTube channel?
Yes.
Okay. Even if you don't, you can get another one. But the essentially what you're going to do, once we create the full video next time, and I'll show you, how I do the processing of the video, then you'll be able to, again, either do it on your own self-service with the, ways that I've shared with you, or
Okay.
if you're like, hey, Jared, I would love for, you or one of the people at Uniting for Action to, create a couple pages around this. However you want to go with it, you'll have all the options available. Okay.
Perfect.
So, okay, great. So let's start going into the different main categories of Mariposas Holistic.
Yeah, so one-on-one counseling.
Okay, so I'm going to say counseling first,
Okay.
since that's more general, because do you have any besides one-on-one, or is it always one-on-one?
I also do I guess like when I think about, okay, what do I use my LCSW for? But yeah, we'll just keep that as that. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't like branched out into too much else with the LCSW. Okay, so with Reiki, I do one-on-one energy healing sessions or Reiki sessions. I would just probably say energy healing, but oh yeah, that's fine. One-on-one. And then teach Reiki classes. Here's a view.
And do you certify people from the classes?
Yeah. I also do retreats.
What types of retreats and where and how many people and all that?
Yeah, so I do 1-day retreats for Reiki practitioners. And I do 3-day weekend, like self-care weekend retreats. Those are normally like US based. And then we do like a 7-day international.
Self-care again?
Yes, self-care.
the one-day retreats are in the South Florida area, or do you do them elsewhere too?
Right now, they're in South Florida. I'm looking at branching out into North Carolina. Other things I do, one-on-one coaching or coaching. I'm in the process of developing a group program for Reiki practitioners.
Under coaching or under Reiki?
It's kind of like a mix. It's like both. It's coaching under Reiki. So yeah.
Okay. So developing
Yeah.
a group program for
Reiki practitioners. Another thing I've just gotten involved in is selling jewelry from Colombia.
So I think I'm just gonna call this products to have a bigger category, and then say jewelry. And then you said from where?
From Colombia. Yeah, so that's like this business, although the retreats, well, it comes out of my business, and then I also have like another business kind of related. So I don't know how to include that.
Well, if you want it on the same map, then should it be on the same map, or do you want a separate map for that other business?
I guess we'll just leave that off right now, because I mean that's kind of like where constantly like, how do I integrate that other business into this? Like, for example, the 3-day and 7-day retreats, that's the other business, yet most of the people that come are through my business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We could just leave it as is. This is good.
Okay. And again, you'll have time to think about it between now and our next session of, essentially you're going to be, reviewing this map and thinking about like, in the 60 minutes that Jared and I are going to be recording, where do I want to spend my time? What do I want to make sure I talk about? Because again, you're basically in many ways, and you've got a lot of this on your website already, which is great. And you don't necessarily have to repeat what's on your website, because we can pull those pieces out and put them onto the pages. But essentially, you're just going to just share a lot of the thoughts that you would share if you were talking, with somebody about these different things. But now that you're sharing it into the realm of empowerment through the thought branches, now, you don't have to have people call you in order to learn about this, right? Like there's already a place that it lives. And as you have conversations with people, so imagine, let's just like take it another step so you can kind of get a sense of this more. So imagine that somebody is potentially interested in the 7-day retreat, and they want to, have a conversation with you about it. Imagine again that they're allowing you to record the conversation, and all the questions that they're asking and you're answering now become, essentially like, automatically building your frequently asked questions page, right? And like all the different details that you're describing, again, are making it into your thought branches, right? So like you might end up from this conversation, and let's say multiple conversations with multiple people, having, pages and pages of web content essentially talking about this,
Yeah.
that, for people that want to keep diving that deep, the people that want to keep following those branches, they always have a choice with all the branches that Paty has shared. Where do I want to, what branches do I want to see? Do I want to read? Do I want to listen to her video clips? You get what I'm saying? So that's where, again, here's like the whole buffet of things we can be talking about, for our next session. And you'll spend some time in advance figuring out, what you want to really get into and get recorded so that you can create, thought branches from that, and then start sharing those thought branches. And then, again, have, products and services at the ends of many of those thought branches, so that as people are tuning into it and finding you and following, your branches, that it's turning into clients and revenue and all of that for you.
Yeah. And so like with this mind mapping, obviously it's less, it's more like 3D. Like, can you also, like, let's say if I wanted to break down, let's say the jewelry, and like add notes or like a link or something, that's all like possible to break it down. Like one thing I'm thinking of, like, oh, this would be great to have, like as I, let's say, build my funnel, instead of doing it on Google Drive, right? In the Google Docs, it's let me do this and then be like, all right, here's these funnels, or this funnel, these are the different steps. Let's say I start with the meditation, and then where is it? How's it going? Or whatever that.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And you're totally getting into like the multi-dimensional aspect with the branches, right? Because the Google Docs, become like static things, right? Like you're talking about meditation, or you're talking about this. There's not all these like interconnected branches between the different thoughts, right? So that, again, that's where, again, the way my mind, works is I'm working on breaking down these limitations of our existing structures.
Yeah. In a visual way. Like, I really like this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could do like this and then just add here. I'm like, oh, I forgot that. Yeah, like you said, working on it. So I'll more likely invest in this. $3 a month, I can do that. And be like, yay, I can play. Because yeah, I'm running out of Google Docs. I'm like stagnant. I'm like, oh, you don't let me like play with these things. So it's good.
Great. So obviously we could go much deeper into all of these, but is this give you enough of a start now before the next session? Is there anything else you want to get into or talk about right now regarding any of this? Or do you feel like you know what there is for you to do between now and our next session?
Yeah, so just to clarify, so between now and our next session, it's just like being able to, like, let's say, break each thought down a little bit more. So for example, teaching classes or certifying people, break that down into like, okay, I have that in English, or I have this in Spanish, like each level, and then just being able to, gosh, like be able to like connect, like the documentation per level, and the certificate, stuff like that. Is that kind of what my next step would be? Like really like go in and start peeling a little bit more?
Yeah, it's, if you think about it, let's take that as an example, the certification. Like if somebody was to, ask you everything, or you were trying to get everything that's in your head about, certification out, you could maybe spend 2-3 hours minimum, right? Talking about all the different aspects of the certification, right? But when somebody shows up just interested, on first blush, what is it? Am I interested, or what have you? You don't want to force them to process all 3 hours of information to figure out what they want, right? Like you are like, well, if you're interested in this, branch in this direction. If you're interested in this, branch in this direction. If you're interested in this, branch in this direction. So you're giving them all the options to follow their own thoughts and continue to get more based on going to the next branch and the next branch and the next branch. So you're taking your full 3 hours of content and you're laying it out in a very consumable way, right? Where someone's entering the front door and they can eventually get to all of the deepest details if they want to, but you're not like forcing them to have to sift through those details to, you know, find what they're interested in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's really, again, the value of the thought maps is that you're like, okay, top level, I certify people, you know, have you experienced Reiki or not? You know, might be a first question, right? Those who've experienced Reiki, you're going to talk to them this way. If they haven't experienced Reiki, you're going to talk to them this way, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe the next question, okay, you've experienced Reiki, you know, have you looked into certification options, or have you, you know, have you studied Reiki with, you know, before? Have you practiced Reiki before? You know, all these different questions that based on their answers, you're going to talk to them this way, or you're going to talk to them this way, right? Or you're going to go in this direction, or you're going to go in this direction, right? So that's essentially how you start to build out your thought branches so that, you know, again, people are going right to what they care about most, you know, in the information that you're sharing. So even though you've got a ton of information, it's not being overwhelming because they're easily able to navigate to what's, you know, what they care about the most. Does that make sense?
And then that's like what, and putting that information, like you said, like with Reiki, are you a practitioner? Yes. And then break it down. Like, so using this mind map, for example, to really, again, break it down further. So really using this tool as that, is that kind of like the intention?
Yeah, that's basically it, is that, again, the thought branch system that I'm programming now is designed to give us the ability to capture and organize massive amounts of information, and yet it be, you know, super simple for people to find what they want, you know, what they care about within that information, like right away, right? And again, at the moment, it's still a very manual process for us because we live in a manual world. But again, probably within a year, as scary as that sounds, probably within a year, you know, those people are just going to be, you know, telling their AI assistant, hey, I'm interested in Reiki, what should I know? You know, and then that's where that assistant will be processing all of your thought branches all at once and then giving them the answer that's most interesting to them. So, you know, and that's why, even though there's only kind of like limited processing that we can do at the moment of our next session, because we don't have the AI working for us yet, just recording it is putting it in the can, so to speak. We process it with the current technology today, but 6 months from now, we reprocess that video with that technology. And a year from now, we reprocess that video with that technology. And that's why as soon as, like, you know, it clicks for you, you're going to start to record a lot of stuff, because just having all of those recordings eventually will populate a lot of thought branches for you. So it's like, if you're having that conversation with one person tomorrow, even though you're not going to be able to turn it into thought branches tomorrow or even next month, if you record that conversation, you won't have to redo that conversation with another person, you know, once you're able to process it. You get what I'm saying? Where it's really going to turn our world into in a lot of ways, we're only going to want to say things once, because to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again is just an inefficient use of time and energy, essentially. So that's where we're headed with this, especially when people are going to be more and more reliant on their AI processing the information for them. So it's like, you're not, again, gets scary, but in the future, you're not going to have as many one-on-one conversations with people. You're going to have one-on-one conversation with somebody, capture it all, turn it into thought branches. Then everyone else that you would have had a conversation with is just going to have their AI assistant process your thought branches to give them the 5-minute version of Paty's our conversation with that person. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Whew. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. So again, we're real cutting edge here, where we're doing the very first step in that future, which is just recording, the content. The processing is going to evolve quickly in the coming weeks and months and years. But just so that I'm going to get that recorded now. I'm going to process it with the tools I have available now. And that'll be great as a starting point, but I'm starting down this path of this is where the world is going, right? This is the way technology, aids us in having a wider audience and going deeper into content than I can do now. Another way to look at it, if you think about it this way, it kind of helps, is, I imagine I've been off of social media for years. I'm sure if you haven't seen me popped up on social media until recently, the whatever posts you've been posting over the last years of anything that you've been sharing with people and a lot that's aligned with your business and the things that you teach people and all of that, like, it's all just buried in years of social media posts, right? Like, where are all of those posts in a searchable format that people can find what you shared 2 years ago and, take action on it or whatever? It's like, again, it's an inefficient, ineffective way that society has structured itself, that we have so much stream of consciousness that's lost to the ether at this point, that we don't have ways of processing all of that information to create a valuable library of content that you have to share with people, right? So, and that's where, again, you can imagine that in a few months, Uniting for Action will be working with Facebook so that Facebook will go and scrape all of those old posts and turn them into thought branches, so that now you can reclaim all of that collected information and work that you did to find all of that and share all of that. And now that can all be turned into the library of what Paty is sharing with people. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that sounds perfect. So when do you want to meet again to go through?
I think if you want, we can set a tentative time for next Thursday or Friday. I'm just going to have to see if I'm ready by then with the programming. I'd like to, if I can be.
I know I won't be ready for next week. I'm going to be in a week-long trauma training, so my brain's going to be like traumatized. So I know I won't be able to even get a chance to work on it. So yeah, if we could do more a little further out, like 2 or 3 weeks, that would be perfect.
Yeah, sure. That's totally fine. Let's
yeah, we can tentative it.
Yeah, let's do that. Let me pause the recording real quick. Okay, great. So we're all set for our next meeting. So awesome, Paty. I'm super excited about, where we're at with all this. I really appreciate how you're, absorbing everything and processing everything and being enthusiastic about everything. It's really cool. I'm really excited, that you're one of the first people that's getting to use these tools and, be a pioneer and support society, support society in this new realm. And that's the thing, again, after reading, the parts I read on your website, I appreciate, right from the beginning, how you talk about how you're, here to help empower people in their lives and be able to be, the most productive selves they can be, and all the different, support that you're providing to help empower people, which is, almost the exact mission of the realm of empowerment. So it's like really perfect that you're showing up, right in this moment to hold this space for uniting for action and for humanity. So again, thank you so much for who you're being for all of this. It's really, really awesome.
Well, thank you for being the mastermind and bringing this all together and just continuing to have that vision and keep pulling us within it. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Awesome. Cool. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think my mind is like, whew, it's gonna go outside now and just take it all in, just be like, thank you, Mother Nature, and just release and then come back here for another meeting.
Perfect. Awesome, Paty. I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. I'm really excited to share this journey with you. So thank you so much, and excited to continue.
Yes. All right. See you soon. Bye.
Okay, be great. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.